unchanged. At 63, I finally embraced something I should have understood decades ago. There is nothing wrong with speaking your truth and showing the world exactly who you are. Years ago, when she was barely in her 20s, photos circulated of her alongside Prince Andrew. The sun hadn't even begun to rise over Montecito when the chaos erupted. By 6 a.m., Meghan Markle's phone was practically exploding. Missed calls piling up, urgent messages flashing non-stop, and her publicists and lawyers frantically trying to reach her. This wasn't the usual tabloid speculation or a slyly leaked rumor. It wasn't gossip, innuendo, or questionable screenshots. This time, it was real video. While some people wondered whether she might find humor in the situation, others insisted they'd be the funnier one. Still, no one doubted the value of her voice. But the identity of the woman behind the leak made jaws drop everywhere. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, the fiery redhead once married to Prince Andrew. A woman who had just turned Buckingham Palace's quiet past into Meghan's most disastrous morning. The leaked clip was fuzzy but undeniably real. A much younger Meghan laughing, holding a champagne flute, enjoying herself on a gleaming white yacht off the coast of Ia. She was surrounded by a glamorous crowd, people so wealthy and influential they made Hollywood elites look modest. For a moment, the camera drifted across the deck, showing a scene straight out of a billionaire fantasy. Designer swimsuits, VIP guests, the carefree energy of people convinced the world would never see what they were doing. But now everyone had, and the person who exposed it wasn't a jealous friend or disgruntled former staffer. It was a royal family member, someone who understood all the rules, all the risks, and exactly what she was doing. Within minutes, Fergie footage exploded across social media. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, every platform was flooded with the 30-second clip. News outlets scrambled to verify its authenticity, but the online crowd had already decided it was real. "Look at our Duchess of Integrity back in her yacht girl era," one user wrote. "So much for privacy and morality," another sneered. Guess Fergie had the receipts all along. By breakfast, Meghan's carefully polished image, humanitarian, feminist icon, global role model, was slipping through her fingers. The video clashed violently with the persona she had spent years curating. From the royal wedding to her Oprah interview to countless declarations about honesty and transparency, everything suddenly felt contradicted by a single clip of her laughing in a bikini on a billionaire's yacht. Footage from decades ago was suddenly reborn as a 4K scandal. Meanwhile, whispers circulated about the Duke and Duchess of York being asked to vacate their residence at Windsor's Royal Lodge. Even though Fergie never mentioned Meghan by name, she didn't have to. She simply described the social world she and Andrew once moved in, and the internet did the rest. It showed how fragile Meghan's public brand had become. Inside the Montecito mansion, sources say Meghan was devastated. She was trembling. An insider revealed she couldn't grasp that Fergie, of all people, would be responsible for this. And in a strange way, it made sense. Sarah Ferguson had always been the unofficial emblem of royal scandal, the cautionary tale every newcomer was warned about. Once a favorite of the Queen, she was later ostracized after her own tabloid disaster, involving the infamous toe-sucking photos of the 90s. She knew better than anyone what it felt like to be humiliated publicly. So why target Meghan? And why now? Royal experts think they know. With King Charles and Jeffrey Epstein's scandals resurfacing, and the king being heckled at public events, tensions were already high. But insiders say Fergie had grown increasingly irritated with Meghan's subtle digs at the royal family, especially her claims that no one supported her during her early royal days. Sarah believed Meghan was rewriting history, a palace source said. She didn't appreciate the contradiction of portraying herself as a victim while simultaneously benefiting from royal status. The footage was her silent way of saying, "You're not the only one with a complicated past, dear." By mid-morning, Meghan's team was in full-scale emergency mode. Her PR director initiated a social media lockdown. Attorneys drew up cease and desist letters, but it was pointless. The clip was everywhere. British morning shows were having a field day. On Good Morning Britain, a pundit joked, "Seems the Duchess's so-called private life had plenty of very public parties." On This Morning, analysts dissected every second of the footage, cross-referencing paparazzi archives. Their verdict? Real. Then came the final blow. A statement from Fergie herself, delivered through her spokesperson. It was sharp, pointed, and unmistakably Sarah Ferguson. Equal parts polite and devastating, wrapped in her signature flair. Rewritten version. English fully paraphrased, meaning unchanged. Everyone carries a history behind them. But when someone builds a career on moral high ground, the truth inevitably becomes a weapon. And just like that, boom. A single sentence sent shockwaves through the media. The message couldn't have been clearer. Meghan, who had spent years championing transparency and authenticity, had conveniently omitted parts of her own past. By lunchtime, whispers had already reached Hollywood's inner circles. Studio executives, talent agents, and streaming platform representatives reportedly held emergency calls. Would this scandal jeopardize Meghan's multi-million-dollar projects? Could the Duchess-turned-influencer still sell the aspirational lifestyle her brand depended on? She's marketable only as long as she remains inspirational, one insider admitted. But this video? It makes her look ordinary, ambitious, strategic, imperfect. The aura is gone. Back in Montecito, Harry was allegedly furious, but not with Fergie. He told her this was the price of fame, a source claimed. He urged Meghan to stay calm, to weather the storm quietly. But Meghan couldn't. She felt wounded, exposed, trapped. The couple reportedly argued long into the night, their voices echoing through their expansive mansion. Staff described slamming doors, Meghan pacing the halls with her phone, angrily dictating statements and insisting her attorneys fix it now. Only days earlier, Sarah Ferguson had publicly apologized for accepting money from known abusers and vowed to end those associations. Yet even Meghan's most loyal supporters struggled to spin the unfolding scandal. She's human, a PR ally told Variety. She was young. Everyone does reckless things in their 20s. But this wasn't a random influencer. This was a duchess, one who had built her entire post-royal identity on words like integrity, mindfulness, and moral authority. And now the internet had watched her party like a character from a tabloid exposé. The damage was immediate and brutal within 24 hours. Her foundation's Instagram lost over 200,000 followers. Several major brand partners began reassessing their relationship. A rumored ambassador deal with a luxury wellness brand quietly collapsed. Inside the palace, sources said the reaction was cold but unsurprised. The institution doesn't forget, a senior royal aide remarked. And Meghan has made plenty of enemies. While Fergie's motives may have been personal, the timing felt almost poetic. Insiders suggested Buckingham Palace had known about the footage for years, but had kept it buried. The royal family had always adhered to a silent rule: mutually assured destruction. Everyone had vulnerabilities. Everyone had secrets. But once Meghan openly criticized the monarchy, its compassion, its values, those silent agreements dissolved. Now the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Meghan was no longer the innocent outsider fighting an ancient institution. She had become the former actress with her own skeletons rattling out of the closet. It's ironic, a British journalist noted live on air. The woman who preached about honesty is being undone by it. By evening, Montecito resembled a battlefield. Harry reportedly reached out to his father. A rare call. Sources said the conversation was tense but polite. King Charles, ever diplomatic, made no promises. His only advice: handle it quietly, dignity always prevails. The irony cut deep for Meghan. Dignity was precisely the image she had tried to cultivate, and now it was slipping away. As night settled over California, she sat alone in the garden, scrolling through headlines. Yachtgate, Fergie's payback, Duchess unfiltered. Her eyes filled with tears as she noticed the silence from old friends and high-profile allies. No one was defending her, not this time. In the stillness of her luxurious estate, Meghan Markle, the woman who conquered Hollywood, married into royalty and built a global empire from exile, realized something devastating. Her past had finally overtaken her, and the crown she once walked away from still held enough silent power to dismantle her without ever lifting a hand. The morning after, a crisis in motion. The sun hadn't yet risen over Montecito when Meghan's team descended into full-scale panic. Phones buzzed non-stop. Headlines multiplied by the minute. Fergie drops yacht footage. Meghan in tears. Publicists hurried to draft statements. Assistants rushed to delete compromising posts. Lawyers were dragged into emergency calls before breakfast. The leaked clip had already surpassed 5 million views overnight. "Shut it down, contact every outlet," barked her PR head, pacing barefoot across the kitchen floor with cold coffee forgotten beside her. But it was already far too late. The footage, grainy yet irrefutable, showed a carefree Meghan aboard a Mediterranean yacht, surrounded by wealthy figures she once insisted she barely knew. Music filled the air. Champagne sparkled, and the carefree atmosphere contradicted everything she'd branded herself as since joining the royal family. By sunrise, happy yacht days dominated every trending list. Meghan herself was missing from sight. Friends said she had retreated into the library, her sanctuary whenever the world seemed hostile. With the curtains drawn and the lights dimmed, she stared at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back didn't resemble the poised duchess who had rocked both Hollywood and the monarchy. She looked trapped. The betrayal, if that's what it was, hit harder because of who delivered it. Sarah Ferguson, once a friend, dinner companion, fellow outsider, was now everywhere. Podcasts, morning shows, late-night interviews, and she wasn't being gentle. "I warned her," Fergie declared during a tell-all interview, her voice calm but razor-sharp. "You can't rewrite history. The truth always resurfaces. Especially when your empire relies on a carefully edited version of your past." The host leaned in eagerly. "So you're confirming the footage is authentic?" Fergie simply smiled. "I'm saying the Duchess has always been an excellent performer, long before she met the prince." Gasps filled the studio. The clip went viral instantly. Back in Montecito, Meghan's team watched in disbelief as headline after headline hammered her reputation. Fergie exposes Duchess's past. Royal rift erupts. Palace insiders. She's finished. Her American publicist, usually composed, looked pale. "If we don't seize control now," she warned, "they'll shape the narrative for her." Meghan finally spoke, her voice low but unwavering. "Then we reshape it first." Within hours, her crisis team launched into action. A 48-hour emergency strategy began to take form. Rewritten version. English, fully paraphrased, meaning unchanged. Her crisis operation rolled out like a military plan. Exclusive interviews lined up, carefully accidentally leaked behind-the-scenes photos prepared, and a deeply emotional statement scheduled to debut on her lifestyle platform. Every move was strategized. Every sentence was polished. But while her team scrambled, a far colder, quieter game was being played across the ocean. "What's one thing you couldn't live without?" "My passport." "Middle name?" "Yes, Meghan, my first name is actually Rachel." Inside Buckingham Palace, senior courtiers gathered in a private chamber where strategy had been crafted for centuries. Heavy portraits watched from the walls, as though silently judging the moment. "Fergie has accomplished what we never dared attempt," one advisor murmured. "The Duchess's image is cracking from within." The royal secretary nodded. "Then let the public witness it. We don't intervene. We simply amplify." A communications officer slid a folder across the polished table. Its cover read, "Project Restoration." Inside were proposed headlines, media timelines, and subtle talking points for upcoming royal appearances. "The plan is straightforward," he explained. "Reclaim the narrative without naming her. Focus on dignity, tradition, continuity. Say nothing directly. The contrast will do all the work." While Meghan's team fought a digital wildfire, the palace played centuries-old chess. Within a day, the heir and his wife stepped out at a London charity gala, appearing elegant, composed, almost glowing beneath the chandeliers. Photos of their serene smiles were quickly placed side by side with clips of Meghan's tearful reaction. Public sentiment shifted. Even the once adoring press began to sour. "She built her legacy on transparency," one columnist wrote. "Yet she has never appeared so guarded." Meanwhile, Fergie was far from finished. Her first interview had been the spark. Now came the fire. She appeared on an international talk show, framed by a dramatic black backdrop, pearls glowing softly under the lights. We used to be close. She began gently. But when ambition outweighs loyalty, you start seeing people clearly. Then the bombshell. She hadn't released the footage for revenge. I did it for truth, she said plainly. People deserve to know the person behind the speeches. You can't preach authenticity while hiding behind a mask. Back in California, the Duchess watched alone. Tears streamed down her face. Not the camera-ready kind, but the raw ones born of panic and betrayal. For the first time in years, she looked like someone who no longer knew who was still on her side. Her phone buzzed. A message from Harry, abroad for work. Don't respond yet. Let this pass. But she shook her head. Let it pass, she whispered. She's rewriting my story. Her voice cracked as she muttered to herself. Don't twist my words. I'm not playing this game. Delete that part. Please delete it. I don't want this to spiral. That night, her team released the official statement. It was emotional, defensive, crafted with surgical precision. Too polished, critics claimed. She insisted the video was taken long before her marriage, that it had been twisted out of context, and that the backlash reflected a disturbing pattern of tearing women down for daring to grow. Hashtags shifted again. Stand with the Duchess. Media misogyny. But the harm was done. Even loyal friends whispered doubts. Allies stayed quiet. Silence spread like smoke. And in London, inside the still halls of Belmere Palace, a memo was delivered to the Queen Regent. Subject: public sentiment. Update: the Duchess is losing grip on her narrative. Recommendation: say nothing. Let events unfold naturally. For once, the monarchy didn't have to fight. The storm was devouring itself. By the third morning, Meghan stopped hiding. No more tears, no more fear. What remained was something sharper, fire, fierce and dangerous. Enough, she announced as her team assembled in the bright drawing room, which now resembled a command center. We're not waiting for this to pass. We're going to reverse it. Her publicist blinked. Reverse what exactly? The story. What followed was a plan only Meghan could conceive. Part performance, part confession, part calculated retaliation. She would film her own special. No network, no interviewer, no filter. Just her, a camera, and the truth. Whatever version she chose to reveal. By afternoon, equipment was delivered. Cameras installed. A stylist brushed her hair into soft waves. The room was stripped of unnecessary decor, leaving only clean lines and quiet shadows. The stage for her counterattack was set. Rewritten version. English, fully paraphrased as my meaning. There were no extravagant sets, no couture dresses shimmering under studio lights. The Duchess wanted something else this time. She wanted vulnerability to become her shield. She began speaking before the crew even had a chance to call action. I've stumbled, she admitted, her voice wavering with a rehearsed delicacy. But women like me are never allowed to leave our past behind. Every chapter becomes ammunition. She hesitated. And sometimes used by those we once trusted. Those carefully measured words would strike like lightning hours later. Because while she poured her heart into the camera, another tempest was brewing thousands of miles away. A mid-level producer from a London media company had broken ranks. Convinced he was acting out of moral obligation, he leaked the raw metadata from the yacht footage to a journalist at the Chronicle. The timestamps, the file origins, the device ID. The footage hadn't come from dusty archives, as Fergie implied. It was downloaded from her own cloud account, accidentally backed up years earlier. When the newsroom saw the evidence, the place erupted. Within hours, the Chronicle published another bombshell. Exclusive, new data suggests Fergie was the source behind the leak. Suddenly, the public mood swung yet again. Clips of Fergie's composed interviews began to look forced. Her righteous indignation felt self-serving. Commentators finally asked the question hanging in the air all along. Had she leaked the footage herself to stay relevant? When her publicist informed her, Fergie reportedly went silent. Then, with the calm of someone who had danced with scandal before, she whispered, "They flipped the pieces. I underestimated her." Meanwhile, Meghan's camp seized the shift instantly. That night, her self-filmed confession went live. Moody, minimalistic and emotionally choreographed. Soft lighting. Bare piano notes. A voice steady but trembling. "I forgive," she said. "Because bitterness corrodes your own peace, but I will always defend myself. Not as a duchess, as a woman." It was calculated, it was masterful, and it worked. By morning, her video had engulfed the internet. Her truth dominated global trends. Celebrities reposted it with captions like, "Powerful beyond words." Talk shows dissected her raw honesty. The same tabloids that mocked her days ago now praised her resilience. But in Belmere Palace, the Queen Regent's advisors remained wary. "Effective, yes," one courtier admitted. "But volatile. The more she talks, the less regal she appears. She's regaining empathy," another noted. "If this keeps up, the palace will be pressured to say something." The Queen's secretary closed the briefing. "No, let her have her moment. The public loves a redemption arc. They burn out quickly." Yet one member of the royal inner circle disagreed. Prince Alaric, the heir's younger cousin, once quietly sympathetic to the Duchess, had begun looking deeper. He'd witnessed the damage silence could cause, so when an anonymous email arrived in his inbox with the metadata report and a brief note, "You deserve to know who set this in motion," he acted. That weekend, Alaric arranged a discreet meeting at a London hotel. The Chronicle journalist laid out the truth. The digital trail did more than incriminate Fergie. It revealed a third player. Someone from Meghan's early PR team who had traded access for a favor years ago. This wasn't just betrayal. It was long-planned sabotage. When Meghan learned the truth, she was in the middle of a live American morning show. A producer slipped her a phone. She read the message, inhaled once, then smiled directly at the camera. "I've always believed," she said calmly, "that the truth finds its way to the surface, no matter who tries to bury it." Viewers didn't know what she'd just seen, but they felt the shift. The Duchess had transformed from defensive to formidable. An hour later, she posted a cryptic line on social media. The footage came from closer than anyone thinks. Perfectly vague, perfectly threatening. Fergie, stunned by the metadata revelation, overnight became the villain of the narrative. Talk shows cancelled her. Business partners froze deals. Her memoir was quietly postponed. Days later, she released her own denial. But too late. The internet had already chosen its antagonist. Meghan pounced. She announced a new documentary, produced by her own media company, focused on truth, forgiveness, and the courage to reclaim your own narrative. Behind closed doors, palace aides scoffed. "A production disguised as redemption," one muttered. But they also recognized as something more dangerous. The Duchess had turned near ruin into strategic rebirth. For now, because in the worlds of royalty and Hollywood alike, redemption is temporary and consequences never stay buried. The premiere. The night of the premiere crashed into Los Angeles like a velvet storm. Spotlights drenched the skyline. Cameras flashed relentlessly. Meghan stepped onto the crimson carpet wrapped in shimmering gold silk. Deliberate, defiant, breathtaking. Every movement radiated control. Behind her, towering banners proclaimed her story, her truth, her power. Inside, hundreds of influencers, producers, and reporters whispered about the scandal that birthed the film they were about to watch. It wasn't a confession. It was a coronation. The opening sequence stunned the room. Slow motion waves, her voice rolling over them. Every woman battles her tide. Sometimes the world forgets that even royalty can drown. By the time the credits faded, the audience erupted into applause. Meghan smiled, small, victorious. Her team finally breathed. They had done it. They had bent chaos into narrative, turned crisis into art. But far away in Buckingham Palace, the mood was far colder. In a dim briefing room, the king watched a private screener. His advisor sat rigidly around him. "It's skillful," one murmured. "Manipulative," another argued. The king exhaled softly. "Both are possible." Then he issued a quiet order. "Prepare a response, not words, a gesture." Within 48 hours, the palace announced The Fellowship, a program for young filmmakers documenting real stories across the Commonwealth. Tagline: authenticity in action. Not a single mention of Meghan. None was needed. The contrast was devastating. Her glossy, self-authored spectacle versus the palace's dignified mission to uplift others. Commentators called it A masterclass in silent correction. Back in California, Meghan saw the coverage. She always did. Her triumph felt suddenly thin. Applause had already cooled. Analysts now debated whether her rebirth was empowerment or manipulation. One headline read, "The Duchess markets Spain like perfume. Beautifully wrapped, faintly artificial." Harry, still abroad, texted, "Proud of you. Stay grounded." Grounded? The word cut deeper than he intended. That afternoon she returned to the library, the room where the crisis had begun. On the desk sat a plain envelope. Her assistant insisted no one had delivered anything. Inside, a printed still from the yacht footage, and beneath it, a handwritten message. "Every crown has its price." Aussi. Her heartbeat stumbled. The signature was unmistakable. Fergie. They had all believed she'd disappeared from the public eye. But the note said otherwise. Not regret, a warning. The older woman had been playing a far longer game, and somewhere she still held a piece of the puzzle. Meghan felt the adrenaline surge again, fear mingling with excitement. This wasn't over. Not for her. Not for Fergie.